All right. So, I guess this is take one to my introductory. Yeah, so for the longest time, I kind of wanted to do my own sort of little TED Talks. And I guess you kind of have to know a little bit about me before you know who, before I just start rambling about my fucking ideology and reasons why I act the way I do. I guess to start, I can introduce myself. My name is Jacob Medeiros. 22 years old. I've accomplished a bit for how long my life has been. I'd like to say I'm semi-proud of myself. I always think I can kind of do more or do better. But yeah. So, I mean, I guess a bit about myself is I didn't go to college. I started working right after high school. I work in a power plant. I live on my own. That's pretty cool. I kind of just do whatever the fuck I want sometimes. And yeah, I mean, I guess some hobbies that I have. I like music. I got retardedly large fucking headphones. I'd like to say I'm an avid gym goer, even though sometimes the consistency doesn't keep up. But for the most part, I indulge pretty heavily. Outside of that, I think really I kind of just go with the flow. I have a good group of friends and family, and more so my interests are stuff that they take interest in, which, I don't know, it may sound like a bad thing. It may make me a boring person, but I think it's pretty cool, I think the one thing I enjoy most in this life is meeting new people and learning them. More so like, I've learned to become kind of open with explaining to people or showing people why I am the way I am, or what goes on behind my eyes when I'm making decisions and stuff like that. So I also like to learn that about other people. I think that's kind of like the most interesting thing about humans, learning the way they think or why they think the way they think. So yeah, I guess this is more so like to show you why I am the way I am and why I think the way I think. But I was thinking more so for first video, the topic would be on kind of my identity, since it is like an introduction video. So I think I'd sit here and kind of explain to you how I see myself and how I hope other people see me. I think a lot of people struggle with identity, but I think it can be a very simplistic thing. At the end of the day, when you're born into this world, you're given nothing but life in your name. So my identity has been what I've done with my life and what I've done with my name. For the most part, I've tried to, when people think of my name, I've tried to have them think of it in like a positive way. I tried not to make too many enemies. Call me a bitch if you fucking want, but at the end of the day, I don't appreciate the drama. So I try to be relatively friendly with most people. I find that a lot of people associate their identity with what they've accomplished or what they've achieved and obtained in this life. And I think more so I associate my identity with the impact I've had on other people. And be that as it may, for the most part, I think I've had a positive impact on people. I've found myself to be mostly like uplifting for friends and family, and even some strangers that I've come across in my lifetime. You know, a little while ago when I was a bit more immature, I kind of thought the same way, that I gotta get more so people can like me more. And, you know, as I've gotten older and achieved more, I've realized that, like, associating myself with the things that I have and the things that I can present to other people, it's not very fulfilling, you know? So I'm kind of on this kick now of being more so a better person and, you know, trying to help other people be better people. That sounds a little bit repetitive, but yeah. Especially with, like, my close family and friends. I didn't have the easiest childhood growing up. And for the longest time, I've been a victim of that. Until so recently, I've had, you know, very great guidance. I was adopted by my aunts when I was younger. And I couldn't wish for the better for myself. I couldn't wish for any better for myself. You know, I think they were two great, outstanding role models. And, you know, I think for the rest of time, I'll fucking forever be indebted to them. Because for the most part, the person that I am today is solely because of them. Obviously, I've put in my own hard work. I've put in my own time and decisions and stuff like that. But it wasn't without their guidance that I wouldn't be who I am today. If that makes sense. So, I've kind of taken the guidance they've given me, and I've tried to kind of reflect it onto other people. Not so much that they can be like me, but so much that they can be a better them. Yeah, so back to, I guess, the part of me trying to impact people in a positive way and stuff like that, and making good of my name. I found myself to be, like, a very angry person when I was younger. And I think anybody who knows me could probably say the same thing. I've always been kind of introverted. I've never really spoken my mind before, up until recent. So much so that it almost felt like I didn't have an opinion for myself, because I was kind of afraid of what people would think of my own opinion. You know, I feel like they would judge very heavily on that. And, you know, I guess in the sake of not ruining connections with people, I didn't want that. When I think of my identity, I think of looking into a mirror and kind of, like, dissecting my brain almost, and thinking of, well, trying to put together, when people hear my name or see me, what do they think of me, you know? And a lot of people would probably think, like, oh, you know, he has this or he has that. But I'd hope that people would look at me and think, like, at least people who know me relatively, you know, close enough, I hope they would look at me and think, like, you know, that I am a kind person, or, you know, at least a reliable person. Because, you know, sometimes I can be a dickhead, but I think it comes from a place of love, because I can be very harsh with the criticism that I can give, you know, my close peers and my family. But it's more so because I want to see them do better, you know? For instance, like, and myself often giving more than I see myself asking. And, you know, I kind of do it subconsciously. Like, it's really kind of like a second nature for me. I don't necessarily mind it. I think it's great. Because at the end of the day, anybody who gets success, if you're a semi-decent person, you want the people around you to kind of bask in that own success. Whether it's, you know, fucking physical things like getting a shit ton of money, working a great job, shit like that. Or even if it's, not so physical things like having the right headspace or being a reliable person to the people you care about most. So I've tried my hardest to be that person, and I think it all stems from me getting such great guidance as a child, that I want to be that guidance for other people. And obviously I'm not sitting here saying I want to be people's fucking parents, because I'm 22 and there's a reason why I don't have fucking kids. I don't want to be a parent. But I think guidance is needed in everybody's life, no matter what stage you're at, which is why I think humans in general seek out like companionship and rely on it so heavily. I found myself to be kind of that uplifting person. I find my friends and family kind of realizing that I'm like that uplifting person, and they'll kind of like come to me, and anytime something bothers them, or there's something weighing heavy on the heart or the head, I'm always like an open ear for them. So I find it that they find it easy to come to me and talk to me about it, because I can be that like understanding and helpful person. Well, now that I think about it, like how do I really identify myself? I mean, I've covered. I think that I'm kind, and I'd like to hope that other people find me kind as well. I mean, I can be a very quiet person a lot of the time. Like, even with friends and family, like I'm never really the first to initiate conversation. Very rarely will I do that. I don't think it bothers them too much though, obviously, because they're still in my life. But I think that is a pretty big flaw of mine. I've been working recently to kind of get over that and be a more outgoing person. Meeting new people, or even just initiating more things with friends and family. It's been a struggle. It's not necessarily the easiest thing for me, because I find a lot of comfort in my own quietness and solitude. I mean, as you can see, I'm in a fucking empty car right now, talking to my camera. But I mean, I guess one step at a time, right? I think I'm heading in the right direction with that, as difficult as it's been. But the people that I have around me they're fairly patient. I've expressed to them like it's something that I'm working on, and they've taken it with open arms and stuff. They don't necessarily take offense to my quietness or my lack of presence, I guess. 'Cause another flaw of mine is I do isolate a lot. Which I think was more so just a product of my negative upbringing as a child, which is why I've worked hard to kind of get over it now, as I'm entering like my young adult stage, and more so I can just be like a better human being, But yeah, I think those two are my biggest flaws, is my lack of presence and my lack of expression. I found it easier to express myself more recent than the more so like forcing myself to go out and be more present in the people that I care about's lives. That's still something I have to get over and kind of work on. But one step at a time. I think I put more focus into expressing myself more, because I've always felt like I never really expressed myself, and when I did, it was always kind of like an explosion, having like anger issues and stuff like that, and kind of being a shitty person. I've always found every time that I tried to get my point across, I've always raised my voice, or I've always had kind of an attitude or a spiteful tone. So I don't know if you guys can really tell, but my work is kind of paid off. I'm I can be very monotone, or I can be very chillax now. It took lots of hard work, but I think without the work that you put in, like, who really are you? Whether it's towards, your career, or towards being a better person and all. If you never put in hard work, what does that say about your character? And at the end of the day, struggle, it builds your character, You can't necessarily be the best you unless you've struggled to get to that point. So I think the one thing I'm most proud of is doing things on my own. As much as I try not to be materialistic, I work hard for what I got. And, be that as it may, look at it negatively if you want. But, like I said, I worked hard for what I got. And I can't help but feel proud of myself for that. Which I feel like anybody should be proud of themselves for, especially for anything that they've worked towards. Whether, it's something great or something small. But, yeah, I do have a lot of self-pride. I don't think it's so much so that I think I'm better than other people. I think it's so much so that I'm better than who I was yesterday. And at the end of the day, that's all I want, is to progressively become a better person, so that when I wake up the next morning, I'm a better person than who I was last night. Some days you don't make the greatest of progress. Some days you do. Even if you only, make 1% of the progress, progress is still progress. You're still filling up that bar of being, like, getting one step closer to your goal. So I think I'm fairly proud of myself. And I do have people in my life that I'm fairly proud of them too. I've seen, I have friends who I've grown up with since we were kids, and they've put in themselves on their own pedestal through hard work and dedication and stuff like that. I don't think anybody in my age group, I guess, is really where they want to be in life. But the fact of the matter is, you still put the work in to be where you are right now, and I can't help but feel proud of my people for that. Yeah, but I guess that's really it. I'm gonna finish the rest of my fucking Wendy's. We got a chicken Asiago, some nuggets, and some fries. And we cannot forget the bev. I'm sure you guys have seen it so far. Strawberry lemonade. We got the double gulp cup. Yeah, that's it. I guess that was kind of an introductory to me. Whenever I gain the courage to put this out, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Yeah. Do better and be better.